Hello everyone, welcome to our first video of the class, and what I want to do in this video is introduce the concept or the discipline of economics, define it, and go over some of the issues and topics in chapter 1. And there's no better way to start our talk than defining what economics is. The analogy I want to draw before I define what economics is I want to picture a pyramid. Now, the pyramid is a very stable structure. It's stable because it has a very wide base, right? And that allows you to build upon it levels that are ensured to stay upright. Now, this is a good analogy. If we're going to start studying a topic like economics, you first have to have a good foundation before you start learning about and developing other skills in this particular discipline. And what's going to be at the base of our talk is the answer to this question, what is economics? Now, if I asked you, what is economics? I've heard many responses from students. Some people would say, oh, it's the study of money, or supply and demand, or scarce resources. Now, all of those responses are to a certain degree correct, but they're not complete. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the complete definition of economics, and that definition is going to be at the foundation of our class. And everything else we study from this point on is going to build upon that foundation. And so the answer to the question is the study of choice. That's economics. Now, for some, this does not seem very profound, but think about this for a second. If you accept this definition of economics, this tells you something. This tells you that nobody can separate themselves from economics. Everybody makes choices. So that leads us to a conclusion about people. We could separate people into one of two categories. Either they are good economists or bad economists. Now, what do I mean by good economist? A good economist is somebody who consistently makes good choices. A bad economist, obviously, is somebody who makes poor choices over and over again. Now, that's going to be at the base here, study of choice. Sorry about that little line there. Let me get rid of it. Okay. Study of choice. That is going to be our base. Now, in order for us to use economics, in order for us to choose wisely, we must have something in place before we make the choice. And that is simply a goal. You need to have a goal in order to make a choice, and that goal is going to be at the top of the pyramid. Now, what sort of goal should be put in place? Well, this is all up to you. It depends what you want to accomplish as a goal. And when you think about that, once you set a goal, all of the topics we cover in this class are going to be based upon the study of choice and how you accomplish a goal. So what I've done for you is I've set up a scenario, a situation where it's impossible to get lost in this class. Why is it impossible? Well, you always ask yourself two questions whenever you cover a new chapter or new topic in this class. The two questions you ask is, how does this help me make a better choice? And how does this relate to my goal? And therefore, you're always going to have a way for you to fall back and get your bearings to understand where a particular topic falls in the grand scheme of things. And when I say the grand scheme of things, I mean kind of this framework I've laid out right here. Now, in microeconomics, we tend to set the same goal, just to have a target to apply the tools in economics. And the goal tends to be profit maximization. Now, is that the only worthy goal in business? No. There are some people who go into business and profit is not their main concern. We call them nonprofits. But profit is a very easily defined goal. And it's a way in microeconomics to simply have a target that we could take aim at and apply the concepts in this course. In macroeconomics, our goal tends to be to understand the business cycle. What is it? Why is it an important concept? How is it measured? What does it measure? That's a goal that we set for ourselves in macroeconomics. So from this point on, we're going to be looking at economics, and economics is simply the study of choice. Now, many people try to avoid choices, but something is forcing us to make the choice. And what's forcing us, anybody to make a choice, is scarcity. Scarcity is a fact of life. Without scarcity, there's no economics, because if there's no scarcity, that means you could do anything and everything that you want. Therefore, there's no need to make a choice. Scarcity is what forces us to choose. Either there's scarce resources, scarce time, scarce money. We don't have enough of those things to do everything that we want, so we've got to choose what do we want to accomplish given our limited resources. Now, if you accept the definition economics is a study of choice, you can now easily define micro and macro. Well, think about this. If economics is a study of choice, microeconomics is a study of individual choices. Macroeconomics is a study of group choices. And when you think about this, this is really misleading, micro macro. It sounds binary, but what you want to do is you want to think of it as a continuum. Like, again, let's take a pyramid. Instead of a pyramid out of blocks, we call it a pyramid of people. It would take me a while to draw lots of people, right? But what you could see here, people, you could start looking at the most micro or narrow way, individual choices, or you could look at it in the most macro sense, global choices. Now, there's an infinite in between in terms of micro and macro. So when you think about it, micro and macro, not really accurate. What you should think of it as a continuum. You could have at the most narrow end individual choices, and in the most broad way of looking at it, macro way of looking at it, global choices. And there's an infinite in between. Now, scarcity is something that we look at that's not necessarily very useful in terms of acknowledging it, because it's just a fact of life. What's interesting are the choices we make when we're faced with scarcity. Now, one of the laws of economic physics is whenever you make a choice, it must cost you something. In other words, you cannot make a choice for free. You've heard that saying, there are no free lunches. Well, that's another way of saying that every single choice that you make must cost you something. Now, the cost isn't necessarily great in every case. Sometimes the cost is very low. Sometimes the cost is very high. But how do you define the cost of a decision? Well, it's what you give up. That's the cost of the choice that you make. So in other words, the value of what you give up is the price you pay for a choice that you make. And this now you can understand why some decisions are easy to make, some are difficult. The decisions that are difficult to make usually deal with what you give up is something of great value. In other words, when you give up something that's very valuable to make a choice, you agonize over it, because if you choose incorrectly, if you choose wrongly, the cost to you is great because what you've given up is something of value. Now, think about if you are making a choice and what you give up is of little value to you. Well, you make that decision quickly and easily because if you choose wrongly, no big deal, what you gave up isn't worth that much to you. So in economics, we call this um, opportunity cost. Let's give an example here. What if I say you have three choices? You could choose A, B, or C, right? And you say, well, I've evaluated these choices and I want to choose B. Now, remember I told you the cost of the choice you make is what you give up. So is the price that you pay the value of A, C, or A plus C? Now, a lot of people will say A plus C because since you chose A, you gave up A and C, but that would be incorrect because if you did not choose B, you would have to choose between A or C. So let's say if I said you can't do B, well, I would do C then. If I couldn't do B, then C is the value of C is the price you pay for choosing B. In other words, your opportunity cost is the value of your second choice. So if you've got 10 options and you choose option one, and option two is your most valued second choice, then option two is the price you pay for choosing option one. Now, this is a good start, and from here we're going to build upon the study of choice and talk about some other interesting issues in chapter one.